Welcome to the Armchair Fantasy Football Podcast. Here are your hosts, DJ Marcotte and John Soroyce. Enjoy the show.
Welcome back, everybody. I feel like I'm going to be in the well today. I do have a visitor with me, so hopefully he sounds like he's a nice baritone, but I don't think I'm going to come across that way. But welcome back to the Working Class Podcast, the Armchair Fantasy Football Podcast, where there are no advanced sabermetrics that put you to sleep, but we're bringing our own brand of armchair analytics to win you your week. What do you think of that, Jake?
I think we're good. I definitely am not in the well like John is.
So we've been winning championships year after year. We're here to help you crack the code. As you guys could probably already tell, John is out today for some personal reasons. But I'm the Armchair Kingpin, DJ Marcotte, and joining me today is our Armchair Alternative, John's Fantasy Fill-In for this Running Back Rank episode, Jake Cookson. Jake is in our prestigious league of records. So, Jake, give us some of your fantasy football background.
Well, I think John should be worried, opportunity plus talent.
Oh, jeez.
No, I'm just kidding, but...
Not short of confidence either, just in case you guys were wondering.
I do love
Jake's
fantasy
got plenty of
football.
that.
I've been playing fantasy football since I was like 12,
Yeah.
so we're going on like 14 years of fantasy football.
Your dad plays too, right?
Oh, yeah, that's how you got into it. And then once I got into leagues with him when I was like 13 and 14, and I start beating grown men, that's when you get like addicted.
It's generational. My son Andrew is jumping into our tag team league this year, so it is definitely a generational thing. And in all seriousness, cool stuff that dads can do with their kids coming right off Father's Day. New father, Jake.
Yes,
congratulations.
Yeah, exciting stuff.
Isabella,
Yeah.
I mentioned on the pod before, I'm a big Andy and Isabella fan, so I'm digging that name quite a bit.
It had nothing to do with that. The name did not come from
I
him.
hadn't considered that it did. So you want to do a little fantasy news flash?
Yeah, let's see what we got.
All right, NewJersey.com's Zach Rosenblatt, that's an interesting name, said it's premature to expect Miles Sanders to become the Eagles' #1 running back. He believes he's, quote-unquote, behind the eight ball. Peterson, the coach, says the plan is to, quote, slowly work him into the mix and see just how he can help us on game day. I mean, for me, is this coach speak to motivate the rest of the running backs? You got Smallwood, Corey Clement, Jordan Howard. Is it fake news, Jake?
Well, I've never heard of Zach Rosenblatt, so
Yeah.
that's not a good
Well,
start to the article.
How reputable is NJ.com Zach Rosenblatt? I mean, I look at this stuff, dude. I don't let this stuff discourage me. We talk about opportunity and talent, and Miles Sanders has both of those.
I don't know if it's a super out of left field to say he won't be #1. There's Jordan Howard. There are guys there who are going to siphon touches away.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to be a workhorse back, but I think he's going to get enough of the carries and the catches, more importantly, to be relevant. And probably, to me, the most productive running back that they have. I'm calling this fake news.
But yeah, by the end of the year, he'll probably end up as their top dog. But
I don't disagree with you. So this one's funny. Mike Williams expects an expanded role this season. Duh.
Is that really news though, or is that just stating the obvious?
He says, "quote I feel I'm going to get a lot more opportunities than I did last year. A lot more balls coming my way. Interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. I feel like Mike Williams is doing his best Captain Obvious impression here."
There's no Tyrell Williams, so
No,
Williams has
Tyrell's
to start catching
gone.
passes. So.
I mean, Hunter Henry should be back in the mix there and probably garner some red zone targets away from Mike Williams. But I think it's fair to say Mike Williams will get more balls thrown his way.
Mike Williams ended so hot, too. That
he did.
Phillip Rivers, I think, has to keep that in his mind.
I had him ranked in my top 24. ECR did not.
I would say he's
just funny,
around that spot.
Yeah, definitely. So speaking of guys I like, receivers I like, N'Keal Harry didn't have the best mini camp, according to Ben Volen, who is reputable.
Yep.
He struggled to get open against Stephon Gilmore and also made a handful of mental mistakes. I mean, the guy's a rookie. He needs to get used to the NFL speed. Gilmore's an all-pro. I'm putting this under the ranks of fake news again. I mean, for me, Jake, he obviously gaining separation was one of his issues coming out of college, but he's a 50-50 ball machine. The guy's going to go up and get most 50-50 balls. I think that given the fact he's lining up in multiple spots and the amount of first-team reps he's getting, especially against Gilmore, is actually encouraging to me. I don't think there's anything to see here. Patriot fans, such as yourself, may, however, think differently with the inability to draft wide receivers in the first round that they seem to have. What's your take as a Pats fan?
Well, I think that's just Patriots news right there. Wide receiver struggling in their first year with the team. That's kind of their go-to. I don't think they really ease him in either. Clearly, if he's going up against Gilmore.
No, they're putting him, they're putting him right in the mix. So that's good.
Belichick must at least be somewhat of a fan if he's playing him first team against Gilmore. That's a good sign.
And like I've said a million times, the cream rises to the top.
If you're picking Harry to be a starter, you might as well wait till week 6 to really see the production ramp up.
I would draft him as my third wide receiver for sure, just based on upside alone.
I think the first 5 weeks of the season, though, you're going to see him try to get acclimated,
and
it's going to be a little bit of a slow start.
Yeah, definitely. So moving on in the news, Cliff Kingsbury says Christian Kirk has a good feel for the offense. Kirk has impressed all offseason. Should be a pass-heavy offense. Will he break out this year? Should he be moving up the ranks? I think, I'm seeing a lot of good stuff surrounding Christian Kirk. What do you think, Jake?
Where you get Christian Kirk makes it very appealing. That offense is going to throw a lot.
If you could, I've done mocks where you can get him at a point where he's basically a wide receiver 4, which is right where you want to get him.
I would love wide receiver 4 Christian Kirk. That is great news.
I think people are still afraid of Arizona's offense. I don't necessarily blame them, but it's got a complete overhaul, a new head coach, and a completely new philosophy.
They're going to run a ton of plays.
A ton of plays. A lot. Yep, for sure. Just one other thing I thought was pretty interesting. Jarvis Landry played in a charity softball game despite missing all off-season workouts as well as mandatory minicamp. So my question is, you and I probably have different takes on Odell, but has Odell already poisoned the punch bowl over there in Cleveland and is convincing Mr. Landry and you don't have to play?
Hopefully he doesn't start pulling I'm a little sore. I think I got to sit this one out, Coach.
I don't know.
Odell has that. Odell loves to maybe exaggerate what the injury is. Take a little time off. I may have traded Odell, so I may be a little less high on Odell.
Too, so I thought that was a great trade. I was actually advocating for that trade, and it had absolutely nothing to do with me. So you ready to roll into some rankings?
I'm ready to go.
For the old running
and
backs?
Looking over it, we're not starting off on a great foot here.
Yeah, we'll be fine. Just on a side note, I'm really glad that the weather's nice today because yesterday it was like a sexual breeding ground for mosquitoes. All we were missing is some Barry White in the background. And today, there's no humidity, the sun's out. It's very nice. So once again, we have the doors open at the Armchair Studios. So running backs, Ezekiel Elliott, I have ranked number 1. What do you think of Zeke?
I do not have him number 1.
All right. Well,
are we going to ECR?
Neither does ECR. So ECR's got Saquon Barkley ranked number 1. I have Barkley ranked number 3. John has Barkley ranked number 3. Where do you have him, Jake?
I have Saquon number 1.
Number 1. So talk to me about that, and then I'll give you my take.
Well, the Giants are going to give him the ball.
Yep.
More than probably any other running back in the league.
I don't disagree with that.
And he's going to have so many touches that it's almost unfair compared to some of the other running backs. The chances he's going to get to score are going to be outrageous.
I like Barkley, for the record, and just to throw the stat line out there, 1,307 yards, 11 touchdowns, 91 receptions, 721 yards, and 4 receiving touchdowns. It's an excellent year. I believe it was the RB1 year. I could be mistaken there. But like you said, he'll get a ton of workload, but I think he's going to suffer a little bit from a bad offense. It didn't seem to bother him all that much last year, but I think it'll cap his upside. I think the biggest problem with Saquon is not him necessarily. Right. It's his situation. And I see most experts ranking him, and platforms ranking him number 1. I just can't do it in good conscience. His usage definitely keeps him in the top 3 conversation, but I think you look at Elliott and McCaffrey with similar usage in much better offensive situations. That's the only thing that I love Barkley. Trust me, I would love to have him on my team. But if you made me pick between the three, I would definitely go McCaffrey and Zeke over him based solely on that. He might even be more talented than those guys.
Yeah, but normally you want the running back on the better team.
Right.
But what really changed in New York besides they lost Odell? And that didn't really even affect him the last 4 games of the year. He still put up numbers. So
they lost Odell, which is going to stack the box. And, John's more of a stack the box guy. I always say if you're an elite running back, you can stack the box all you want. It's not going to matter if you're that good. So, I don't know. When I look at it, Jake, I look at, okay, these guys are easily the top 3, in my opinion. What separates... They're separated by so little. So what is that? What separates them? And to me, that's the only thing, is the Giants are a trash offense. Shermer it was his first year last year, so maybe we'll see some advancements there. But how far are you going to go with Eli Manning and Daniel Jones as his backup?
All those running backs could finish number 1, really.
Yeah, definitely.
Any of those,
Yahtzee.
I say 4 could finish number 1.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So, just moving on to number 2 real quick. ECR is Ezekiel Elliott. I have Zeke at 1. John has Zeke at 1. I'm guessing you have him lower.
I have McCaffrey at number 2.
You have McCaffrey at 2.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I don't disagree with that necessarily. Actually, I have McCaffrey at number 2, but I just like Zeke more. So, for Zeke...
We're going to Zeke. I got Zeke
since he's number 2 ECR.
I got Zeke at 4.
That's unacceptable.
I knew that was the first hot take of the day, right?
Well,
there.
let me explain myself and why I feel that
These
way.
are PPR we're talking about as well.
And I'm glad you
said
that.
So if we were talking standard, Zeke runs right up the board.
So I'm really glad you said that. So just his stat line last year, 1,435 yards, 6 touchdowns, 77 receptions, which is a huge reception count for a running back. Not McCaffrey level, but still excellent. For 567 receiving yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. He missed 1 game. So I think Zeke is extremely underrated as a pass catcher. He led the league in rushing with only 15 games. Think about that. I would expect positive regression in terms of his touchdowns.
Me as well.
His O-line wasn't even at full strength. Travis Frederick's back. They're healthy. A lot of things went against Elliott, and he still had a great year. I think the offense is going to improve, and I think Zeke's ship will rise with the tide, as I like to say. Kellen Moore is a new offensive coordinator. He wants to move away from the same old antiquated, goofy Garrett offense that does not work. And I think here's you want a hot take? I think Kellen Moore could be the next hot offensive coordinator, head coaching candidate. And I think there's a false narrative that Elliott doesn't catch passes. I mean, that was really only the case in his rookie year. But he had 32 in 15 games, which is the same total that Gurley had last year with 16
Well, we'll get to Todd Gurley.
But, I mean, people think as Gurley is a pass catcher, Zeke's worst year matched what Gurley had last year. And he was on a 12-game pace of 42 receptions in 2016, the suspension year, the BS suspension year. And then 77 last year in 2018. They've gone it significantly every year. And another false narrative. I'm on my soapbox in case you're wondering.
I was letting you roll.
His reception, there's this false narrative that when Cooper got there, his receptions went down. Are you ready for this, dude? They actually went up. His receptions were 3.5 receptions per game before Cooper. They went up to 6.5 after Cooper got there. That's an astonishing jump. And I think Moore, as the offensive coordinator, should at least sustain that. And with the positive touchdown regression, that's your RB1 right there. That's my take.
The PPR, though, just the problem with Elliott is he's not going to catch 80 passes.
I don't think that's true, because if you look at his pace with Cooper, he's going to be over 90.
We'll see about that. He never had more than 32 catches in a season until this year.
Right, but you have to look at suspensions. You have to look at his rookie. First year was his rookie year. And I gave him at trends.
I gave him a lower. I gave him 60 for the year. 60 catches.
I think that's too low.
And
we'll agree to disagree.
I think
on
there's
that.
too many. I think there's a lot of guys in Dallas.
I've debated this guy over the years long enough to know that we could go all day on one guy. So
if it's standard scoring, Zeke is right up there for number 1. Yeah. But I think PPR, Kamara, McCaffrey, and Barkley catch too many passes. compared to Zeke, and I think that's the only difference is the pass catching.
But Kamara, I don't think has ever, when they're both played 16 games, has ever ranked ahead of Zeke. And last year, Zeke was like the 5th, in some places, 6th ranked running back.
Well, that might be a little.
He finished with the most rushing yards. So I love Zeke. I think, honestly, and you probably disagree with this, Jake, he's got the star on his helmet. So I think people are built in not to like anybody with the star on the helmet, just like Flying Elvis.
I don't think I was. I gave him 1,500 yards and 8 rushing touchdowns, 60 catches, 450 yards, 3 touchdowns. Yeah. That sounds like a stat line he'll finish with.
That's a great stat line. Yeah, no doubt.
But if he finishes with that, he ends up as my 4.
Yeah. I just think he's number 1.
And you can. You can think he's number 1.
And I don't think that because I'm a Cowboys fan.
He thinks that because he's one of his keepers. That's why.
And that too.
That's why.
That might.
I have this guy, so I got to bump him up.
I have to justify that? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we'll get to Joe Mixon, and I will justify too. So it's all right.
You ready for number 3?
I'm ready for number 3.
Run CMC at number 3. I have him at number 2. John's got him at number 2, and Jake, you said you did as well. Number 2, or you?
Yeah, I have McCaffrey at 2.
Yep. So we all have him at 2.
Did you call him Run CMC?
Yeah, Run CMC, man.
I'm not sure I'm down with that nickname, but we'll see.
It is what it is, bro. I don't even think I came up with that one, to be honest with you. So McCaffrey's at 2. 1,098 yards rushing, 7 touchdowns, 107 receptions, which is just
can't happen again.
Just ridiculous for 867 yards. So if you look at his yards per reception, they're probably not all that great.
Not impressive.
But 6 receiving touchdowns. So what do you think about CMC? Run CMC, as you like to call him.
I think he'll finish number 2 easily.
He
just gets so. The targets were crazy last year. Finishing 107 receptions, you're getting a running back and a receiver at that rate.
So what changes this year that you think is going to cause that regression?
That's just pounding the ball to one guy that many times, I think, is a little scary. Yep. If you're Carolina, you got Cam Newton fully back, hopefully. DJ Moore maybe coming out a little bit.
Yeah, he definitely
siphon a little of that yardage and catches off, maybe a little bit. But
Greg Olsen, I mean.
Sure.
He was a security blanket for Cam for years, and I think people sleep on Curtis Samuel a little bit too much too. So if you look at the passing offense, it's actually pretty good. But I think obviously McCaffrey's the centerpiece of it. He's proven to be durable, and he bulked up in the offseason.
Yeah, all he ate is protein shakes and lifted weights all offseason. That's all he did.
He's like John Cena out there. So he's and that's what I like about the guy though. He's always trying to get better. He's always trying to perfect his craft. He's a great player, great guy, great work ethic, great situation. So for me, it was actually hard not to rank him at number 1, and maybe I should have over Zeke, but he's an easy number 2, and it ain't even a question to me.
Yeah, I think he's the safest of the top 4 guys.
Yeah, you're
I think
probably right.
The ceiling, the floor is the lowest, or the highest, I'd say. He's going to get the catches.
Yeah.
He's going to get close to 1,000 yards rushing. Yeah, dude. I think he bumps up to number 1 if he can score. If he can just, so many times Cam Newton over the last 2 years, it just missed him.
Which I think with the shoulder thing too, I don't think you're going to see Cam running as much at the goal line. I think you'll see some dump offs to McCaffrey there. I love McCaffrey. He reminds me of Wes Welker a lot. He's just a tough, gritty Iron Man and a workaholic. And
that 107 catches is like a Wes Welker stat line.
Well, it is.
Except then he ran for 1,000 yards on top of it.
Right, yeah, no. He just reminds me of Welker, man, just as far as his work ethic and his toughness. So hopefully he can sustain that over the years. But I love McCaffrey. I'm probably never going to get him.
Nope.
But just where he goes. But I can still be a big fan. So over to number 4. Sorry, we're at 4. Alvin Kamara. I have Alvin Kamara at 4. John has Alvin Kamara at 4, and you have him at 3.
3. Yeah.
So we're not too far off there.
I think it's which flavor of the 4 do you like the best? Really, they're all. It's 1A, B, C, and D.
It's that top 4. Alvin Kamara, just real quick on his stat line: 883 yards, 14 touchdowns, 81 catches. So think about that. Alvin Kamara, we look at, just to go back to McCaffrey. We look at Alvin Kamara as a pass-catching machine. For the record, he only had five-ish more than Zeke, but I digress on
only
that.
4-ish, I'll give you that.
4-ish. I'm channeling Sir Royce here. But he had 81 catches. He's a pass-catching back, and McCaffrey had 107. So I just wanted to touch on that again real quick.
So that's where the top 3 for me separates is Saquon was at 91. Those 3 guys all had 80+, and it's just... Can Zeke get to 80? If Zeke gets to 80, he might be able to.
I think he will.
He's in there.
Dude, I can talk about Zeke all day long. We didn't talk about his tripping over a security guard at some music festival. Obviously, that's something probably needs to be said, but we'll
I think that was overblown.
I think it
quite a bit.
Hopefully, we don't have to touch on that in a news reel down the line. But anyway,
hey, it would be funny for everybody else but you.
Gotta handcuff him.
Who's the handcuff though? Who in Dallas do you even take?
I'll figure that out. I think it's Mike Weber, but we'll figure that out. So anyway, Kamara 81 catches for 709 yards and 4 receiving touchdowns. That's 18 total touchdowns, man.
That's where you get nervous. 18 touchdowns for
regression, you mean?
But the thing is, he might get that again with the Saints. They scored so many points.
That's the thing. And
it's hard to say he won't score 18.
Latavius Murray's going to slide right into that Mark Ingram role. I think everybody expects that. Other than that, there's really no additions to the passing attack. I would say to Jared Cook, come on, man. Jared Cook is not going to eat too much into Alvin Kamara's, reception total. Maybe touchdowns, but I think he'll continue to get about 200 carries. That's my concern with Kamara. You look at it, 200 carries is his cap. They do not run him any more than that. So I just think his upside is capped to be the number 1 overall running back. But, after 4, we just discussed it, there's a big drop-off.
So I think that, touching on the carries, kind of digging into the numbers, touches per game, he is not elite compared to other guys.
Not. And he has disappearing at games.
So that makes me very nervous. But what he does with those touches is he just scores touchdowns. So that's all he does is scores touchdowns. So last year he averaged about 17 touches a game, and the elite guys really were getting 20, 21.
Oh, dude,
I think your boy Zeke over there had 26 opportunities a game last year, and that speaks to how much Dallas leans into Zeke.
So strange, because when you think about it, who the heck else do they have in New Orleans? Well, obviously Michael Thomas. We don't want to forget that guy.
Yeah, he only catches 130 passes.
But so it's like those two guys, a two-man show. And,
it works, though.
And it works, yeah. And it will probably continue to work. So, AK-41, everybody loves him. Is that nickname acceptable for you?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
You haven't hit a home run yet, but we're waiting for it.
I still like Chef Barbara D.
That's all right.
So, number 5, expert consensus rank. I think this is going to be the same guy across the board. I could be wrong, but it's Melvin Gordon. John and I have him ranked at 5. Where do you have him?
I have him at 5, too.
So
I'm not really excited about.
Well, I got a lot to say.
5
so
though either.
You tell me what you think, and I get a few points on him.
The reason I'm not excited, and DJ will give you the stat line after I ramble, but can he stay healthy? In 4 years, he's played 16 games once. I didn't rank anybody based on injury. I gave everybody, 16 games, what production would be. If he stays healthy, he's gonna finish top 5. He might even finish higher. If one of those other guys doesn't quite fulfill his. But can he do it? It scares me to say he will play 16 games.
I'll jump in there.
And, the last point I think is the Chargers love to sprinkle in the other guys.
They do.
And it really is frustrating when you're watching them drive down and all of a sudden Justin Jackson comes in and vultures the touchdown. And you're like, where did this guy come from? He hasn't played for 3 quarters. And now, with 12 minutes left in the game, you're bringing him in?
Tito Jackson, Justin Jackson. All the Jacksons are just running.
Where did this guy come from? And then I think Mike Williams in the red zone is a little bit of a threat there. Just bigger role. Mike Williams himself thinks he's going to get a bigger role.
Yeah.
So.
And Hunter Henry.
Hunter Henry. I think he's just got a lot of warning signs to me. Not something I personally want, but I think at 5 he is the 5th running back. It's just inevitable.
2 years ago, I traded. Was it 2 years ago? It was after David Johnson's big season, and I traded Melvin Gordon and Jordan Howard and a 4th round pick to get David Johnson, and then David Johnson missed the whole year the next year. I probably shouldn't have done that trade because Gordon is consistently not consistent. So the way I look at him, just to touch on his stat line, 885 yards, 10 touchdowns, which is excellent, 50 receptions, 490 yards, 4 receiving touchdowns. So in case you can't add, that's 14 total touchdowns, which is excellent. That was only in 12 games. So his 16-game pace was actually 1180 and 13 touchdowns, 66 receptions, 5 receiving touchdowns. He's a classic workhorse back on a great offense. but he's not as durable as the rest of the top 5. And like Jake said, we don't really want to factor in injury. We don't want to bake that into their ranking. But at the same time, Melvin Gordon starts the second tier, in my opinion. And the reason he's not in the first tier is because he doesn't always give you 16 games. He did in 2017. But when he's out there, he's as consistently elite as you can get. The problem is, 2015, he was out week 16, 17. 2016, he was out weeks 15, 16, 17. 2018, he was out weeks 13, 14, 15. Jake, what's significant about those weeks?
That's when you're winning the championship?
Playoff stretch in the playoffs, exactly. So you have to weigh that in when you're drafting guys in that tier area, and that's why he's in tier 2. And I'll advocate handcuffing your top back, and especially you better handcuff this guy. But like you said, it's a tough one handcuff in that scenario. So really, that's the only thing that keeps Gordon out of that top tier for me, is because, like I said, when guys are so close in talent, so close in opportunity, so close in the scenario that they're in, something has to separate them. And in Melvin Gordon's case, it's the fact that he's never there for the fantasy playoffs or the playoff stretch.
And I think Melvin Gordon has such great games sometimes. I kind of went back and looked through some of his numbers before last season, and he's not really elite in things you want to see out of your number one. He didn't even average 4 yards a carry the first 3 years. And that's really rough for me to go and take him over David Johnson or Joe Mixon. I have him there because if he does play 16, that's where he'll finish for me. But will he play 16?
He's a tough guy.
I think you could see him dropping below at least 3 or 4 guys. I think he could drop as low as 8 or 9, really.
Yes, he could.
Based on how scared people are of the injuries.
He could be number 1, too, if he's healthy. But
I still think even if he plays 16 games, he couldn't be number 1. I don't think he could supersede Barkley or McCaffrey.
Probably not.
Or Zeke. Just for you, I'll say Zeke.
If you look at, you watch Gordon, and I've owned Gordon before, like I just said. We're in Red Sox Nation up here, and I don't know if anybody remembers Daisuke Matsuzaka, but he was hard to watch because he was just so slow and painful, and he would eke out wins, but it was just so hard to watch. And Melvin Gordon's like that. He'll run into a wall 50 times a game, it seems like, but then he'll give you 25 to 30 points at the end of the day. So
you want to go baseball reference? He's like Manny Ramirez. He's great when he plays, but then he pulls a hamstring,
you could go that
and you're like, oh, here it is again. No, that hammy acting up.
I mean, I think we both love Melvin Gordon, but
I'm not sad if I get Melvin Gordon.
Yep, but at the same time, we both are realistic. We both look at trends. We both look at what has actually happened in history, not just fantasy land.
Not just to poo-poo on Melvin Gordon. He is.
You're gonna pile on.
He does get elite touches a game. He does get the 20, which is a big deal to me. As long as you need to be getting the ball to score the points. So.
But if I'm drafting you in the first round, that means you're the cornerstone of my team. In the cornerstone of my team, I need to count on to help me win a championship. Can't do that if you're not in the playoffs.
Melvin Gordon or DeAndre Hopkins?
I would go DeAndre.
I think that's the problem.
Think twice.
You would not draft him over a wide receiver, and that's, to me, an issue.
No, that's a great point. That's an excellent point. I wouldn't draft this guy over DeAndre Hopkins.
I think DeAndre Hopkins is the next guy after the top 4. Yes. Not just because I own him either.
Well, it doesn't hurt either. That's what's great about keeper leagues, guys. You got to get in the keeper or dynasty leagues. You build a really good connection with these players, and it's pretty fun. Maybe that's why I'm so high on Juju. Anyway, number 6 is... I cut right in there, so we couldn't go down that road. Number 6 ECR is David Johnson. I have David Johnson at number 6. Oh, wow, you thought I was high on Dalvin Cook. John's got Dalvin Cook at 6. He's got David Johnson at 11. Hot takes of Royce.
There he is. Good thing he's not here. I have David Johnson at 6 as well.
Yep, perfect.
I think you see him return somewhat to form. I think that 1 year's a fluke.
So last year, you mean?
No, it was like 3 years ago now that he had the big year.
You think it was that big year?
That big year was kind of a fluke. Okay. I think he kind of broke out, went nuts. I think once
Arians.
Why don't you hit him with the stat line and then we'll.
Well, that's the funny thing. So
because the stat line's not impressive from last year, to be honest.
But it's not as bad as people thought it was.
I was going to get to that point too.
So 941 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 3 receiving touchdowns. That's 10. That's double digits. I'm taking that all day long. And 50 receptions for 446 yards. So it's not a bad year. It's just not what we expect from David Johnson.
So we're kind of like David Johnson, but he finished as number 9 last year. Still.
Yeah, dude.
And he had we're calling it a bad year, number 9. So.
And that's where we have him ranked is, I mean, if you think about 6, there's probably 3 wide receivers, at least 2 Adams and Hopkins that you would rank or draft ahead of them. He's right back at 9 as far as where we have him ranked. Right. It's just, there's a lot of question marks, but I feel like he can only go up from where he was. I mean, probably the most poorly run offense in the league last year. Complete dysfunction, dreadful play calling, just an embarrassment. And Kingsbury could resurrect the offense, and if so, I think it's back to form for David Johnson. I think he's the quintessential post-hype sleeper. You can get him at a better value this year, and we know what his upside is. His upside is, whether we like it or not, that 1,239 yards rushing, 80 receptions, 879 yards, and 20 total touchdowns in 2016. That's his upside. It happened. Mm-hmm. Will he get back to that? Probably not, but I think he'll be more back to form. I hope. I mean, Cliff Kingsbury didn't win a lot of games in college, but at least he brings a progressive offensive mind to the table.
I think does David Johnson get the catches? If David Johnson's catches goes up to that elite range of 70 plus,
it's in the air raid
that's
offense,
a big deal.
I wish I could tell you I know the ins and outs of that air raid offense, but I know there's a lot of passing, and I know David Johnson's got that capability. So I don't think you're going to see him dip below the 50 receptions last year. I look at 60 to 70. I think is reasonable, but I probably should have done more homework on Mr. Kingsbury's offense, but his eyes are so dreamy. He's such a handsome guy.
Oh,
it's hard
God,
for me
here
to
we
get
go.
beyond that.
Here we go. But
Have you ever seen this guy? He looks like a movie star.
Well, he didn't really perform great in college, and now when he did, he had Patrick Mahomes, who was the best quarterback in the NFL.
But he looked good doing it.
Oh,
The girls love him.
I guess, is that part of your rankings, how good they look?
Yeah.
If they're handsome, they get a bump?
That's why Zeke's number 1.
Ugh. That beard?
Yeah.
Did you see McCaffrey?
Dude,
did you see the muscles?
Yeah, McCaffrey.
He literally ate steaks and protein shake every day.
He did. He's okay.
I wish I had McCaffrey.
I wish I did too. I wish I had McCaffrey and Zeke. I'd be more than happy to have both those guys. Moving on to 7. 7 ECR rank is Todd Gurley. I have Todd Gurley at 8, and John has Todd Gurley also at 7.
I have Todd Gurley at 9.
And I'm pretty sure I know why, but I'll give you the quick stat line, and then I'll let you explain yourself. 1,251 yards, 17 touchdowns, 59 receptions, 580 yards, and 4 receiving touchdowns. Excellent stat line. I think people forget that, but continue, Jake.
Todd Gurley yo-yoed from all the way up to 5 to down to 12 for me when I was doing rankings.
Yeah. Because, and I put Jake on the spot, by the way. He had a day to prepare his rankings, so great job.
But it's just, you're picking a guy this high. You're probably a first-round pick if you're the number 7 running back. And I just don't know if I can go with Gurley there, not knowing quite what's going on. I think if you draft later into the offseason, which most people do, I think you probably don't get him at such a value because I think he's going to be cleared up a little bit and play fully up to his potential. But I just don't think right now with the offseason, people have said, oh, he's got arthritis. Oh, he's not going to be the workhorse.
Yeah.
Yada, yada. I can't rank him as high as some other guys that are workhorses.
Well, and there's other things in play. Like the team matched the offer sheet for Malcolm Brown, drafted Darrell Henderson in the 3rd round. I mean, that's an early draft pick. I mean, he could be an incredible value, but there's a lot of risk attached to him. It was, I think, the mock that John and I did for the bonus episode. I got him with the 15th overall pick. If you're getting him there and it's business as usual, then you're probably going to win your league.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think if Gurley, they finally come out and say he's going to play, I don't see those other guys taking too many touches from him if he's healthy.
No.
He's
the bread and butter.
He was the number 3 running back last year.
Dude. And I don't want to say he wasn't even trying, but everybody assumed he had a bad year, and he really didn't. I mean, he's weird. He's a rare player where you're gambling if you take him, and you're gambling if you pass on him. He says everything's fine, nothing to see here, but there are a lot of warning signs. So that's why I can't, in good conscience, rank Gurley higher than where I have him.
Just looking at rankings, if I personally want to pick at the end of the 1st round, with DJ. I think that's where you want to be.
Yeah.
If I can get a stud receiver in Gurley in the beginning of the second, I think you potentially won your league right there.
Well, that's what I got in that mock. I got Gurley and I got Davante Adams. I'm fine with that.
I'll take that combo.
If those guys are two form, then you're winning your league. There's no question about it. Or at least you have the upper hand to win your league. So that was Mr. Gurley. Moving on to number 8 is Le'Veon Bell. I have Bell ranked at 9. John has him ranked at 10. Did you go?
I have 11? Bell at 10 as well.
It would have been cool if he was 11, but I'm just with Bell. I'm getting on a soapbox with him too. So he missed the season due to holdout of the century, which was just ignorant on both sides, in my opinion. He's got fresh legs, but he's potentially rusty. So I'm kind of counterpointing myself. But he should be an elite back. Problem is, the rumors are that Gase didn't want him, and Gase is a child that holds grudges. Ask Kenyon Drake. He should be a big part of the offense, but it's hard to predict. You got Elijah McGuire there, Trenton Cannon. And the addition of Bilal Powell and Ty Montgomery concern me too, only because of Adam Gase. With that being said, let's not forget what type of player he is. 2017, he had 1,291 yards rushing, 85 receptions, 855 yards, and 11 total touchdowns. 2016, in 15 games, 1,268 yards rushing. This is in 15 games, 75 receptions for 616 yards, and 9 total touchdowns. Actually, that was a stat line with just 12 games. And then only 6 games in 2015. In 2014, he had 16 games, 1,361 rushing yards, 83 receptions, 854 yards, 11 total touchdowns. I probably just bored you with stats, but at the end of the day, you cannot discount the fact that he's an elite player. You don't put those stat lines up with that level of consistency based just on systems or luck. You just don't. So we know he's an elite player, but he's in the worst possible scenario on a team that I'm not sold on Sam Darnold. Are you?
No. I was going to give you the Jets chant, and then I realized I'm not excited about him being on the Jets, so I reeled that back.
Yeah.
If he went to basically any other team in the NFL, I think we would be way more excited about this.
Imagine if he was in Tampa. Like, sky's the limit. Wheels up, bro. But he's not.
No.
Wheels up Jets. But those Jets don't have wheels. No. I don't even think they have wings.
Part of the problem with the Jets,
a rudder.
They play the Patriots twice a year, and what do the Patriots do? They try to take away your best player.
And they will do that.
So those 2 games are going to be rough.
Yeah.
He has to go to Buffalo and Baltimore in December.
Yep.
If they are crappy, is he going to be very excited to play in a blizzard in December for a team that's 3-12?
Well, he's getting paid now, so he better.
Why? He already got paid.
Yeah,
that's part of the problem for me. Is he already has the paycheck?
You're right.
Is he going to be in clubs rapping all off season again like he was this year?
The rumors that he ballooned up to like $3 billion in the off season, and now he's back to.
Well, there was social media videos of him nightclubbing and rapping all off season, and that really fires me up for my RB1 to be not practicing all off season.
I think Bell can work hard and play hard. I'm not too worried about that. I get where you're coming from. My concern is just the Jets, man. And specifically Adam Gase. How did that guy get another head coaching job in the NFL? And of course, the Patriots, he's still in their division because they always just end up in those situations. But I just don't understand it. I would sit here and say I hope Gase gets fired halfway through the season, but it's his first year there. Then
that causes more turmoil, more horrible offense. I don't know if the offense could be worse, but it might get worse if they fire him.
It's not even just the offense. It's the whole
the defense is always halfway decent.
No, the defense is okay. It's the organization. I really wish the NFL would adopt Premier League rules for teams the Jets, for teams like the Dolphins. Pretty much every team in the NFC.
Imagine if he went to the Dolphins. I would have been more excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
At least it's sunny weather.
Yep, it is.
At least he's happy to be there.
And it's at least a fresh start. Adam Gase, no matter what team he goes to, is not a fresh start. The guy's garbage, and that team's going to be garbage. And hopefully Le'Veon Bell can just come out with a clean stat line that doesn't completely rupture your season because you drafted him in the top 15.
The thing he has going for him is they got to give him the ball. They have to. Who do you think Elijah McGuire is getting the ball?
Robbie Anderson's the only other guy that can help them win games. Jamison Crowder is going to catch his little possession receiver, slot receiver passes. He's not going to help them win games. It's Robbie Anderson and it's Lev Bell.
He might get 300 carries this year.
He could.
He should. For the Jets, he should. And all he has to do is average 4 yards a carry, and there's 1,200 yards and a top 10 finish.
No, I think he'll be fine.
I'm not excited about it, though.
Exactly.
Not excited about it.
And that's why I have him ranked at 9.
The problem is, after Bell, there's probably 5 other running backs I'm excited about.
Yes. Is Dalvin Cook one of them?
Dalvin Cook is one of them.
That's good.
Dalvin Cook's exciting. I think just because he plays on a good team.
Mixon.
You swap Bell and Cook, and Bell is probably my number 1.
Oh yeah, and
in Minnesota,
people think like, oh, you have Bell ranked ahead of Mixon, so why did you draft Mixon? Well, because I feel like Bell, when we're doing rankings, it's their upside, it's what their capabilities are. We're breaking everything down. And at the best case scenario, he should end up with more points than Joe Mixon. And that's why I have him ranked higher. But I still would rather have Joe Mixon if that makes any sense.
It does. I still think Mixon's going to score more points even if they both play 16 games.
Yeah, but he's another guy, and we'll talk about him. He's on a dumb team that just cannot run themselves properly to save their lives.
Which offense would you rather be on?
No offense to my son Andrew, who's a Bengals fan.
Don't worry, I'm gonna support the Bengals right now. Who would you rather have your running back on, the Bengals or the Jets?
It's the Bengals,
right?
But I don't know if it's really.
It's not going to be by much.
By a lot.
By a lot, but at least the Bengals will win more games. I think keep them interested.
There's just a lot of variables there too. Moving on. Number 9, ECR is James Conner. I have Conner at 10. John has Conner at 8, so he's a little higher on him. Where do you have him?
I also have Conner at 8.
Yeah, so we're not too far off there.
I think the top 10 really are pretty much, it's a pick your poison really, who you want. After the top 4, I think you could argue any of them in the top 10 really.
We might be into the next tier here. But I don't, like you said, they're all pretty similar in this area. I think tier 2 is just really girthy this year. I think Gordon's at the top. Gordon may be tier 2 with David Johnson, and then after that it might be tier 3. But Conner had a great year last year. 973 yards, 12 TDs, 55 receptions for 497 yards, and 1 receiving touchdown.
How did he only get 1? They threw 3,000 times last year.
Well, Juju. And Antonio Brown. 14, I think. Or maybe might have been even higher than that. But I think he'll continue as the lead back. I don't think Benny Snell is going to be a factor. I think Samuel will have a role, but not a huge role. There's a lot of talk that they want to use a committee. I just don't buy Pittsburgh using a committee approach. In fantasy football, you got to go with the trends. What has actually happened? What is reality? And reality is that teams say things all the time. But what you need to pay attention to is what they do on the field. And Conner's a steady contributor on a good offense. He's a workhorse back. He's not an elite player that the top guys are, hence his ranking. But he's probably less talented than some of the guys that are ranked below him. But Pittsburgh is a soft place to land for running backs when you take usage into consideration. And that's why I have him. I mean, I don't have him ranked crazy high, but I have him ranked higher than like a Joe Mixon because I'm more comfortable with where he is and the team that he's on.
Yeah, I just had 2 words to start my blurb off, was great situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
James Conner's very lucky, I think, to be in Pittsburgh. Yeah.
He should be thanking Bell
big time.
for the ultimate payday that he's going to get.
He got
or maybe not
just
yet.
A super lucky situation. Le'Veon Bell decides he's not playing for a year, and then this guy just runs crazy.
Yeah.
So he did only play 13 games.
Yeah, he did. That's true.
He didn't break 1,000 yards.
Nope.
So,
but I think had he played 16, he certainly would have.
Had he, Willie.
But 12 touchdowns in that many games is incredible. Well,
that's the great
total.
Situation about Pittsburgh. They're going to score a lot. Hopefully, Big Ben, they reel back a little bit. No Antonio Brown. Maybe that's less 4-yard passes and more runs or swing passes, maybe.
There's another part of that whole Brown scenario where sometimes teams just play better when you get rid of the garbage. Garbage in, garbage out, as they say. And I think that team is going to be maybe not as talented, obviously, but they're going to be a better team because they don't have that distraction. And I think they're going to play to win, and they're going to work together rather than dealing with Antonio Brown wanting his 150 targets or I'm going to quit or whatever his problem is. I can't figure that guy out.
That's kind of where the problem with Antonio Brown is. One of my tag partner is a huge Pittsburgh fan, so we watch a lot of Pittsburgh games. Yep. And there are times where they just force it to Antonio Brown for really no reason. Like, he ran 3 yards down the field and he threw a slant.
Right.
Was that really the best play to run? But you got to keep him happy.
Exactly.
So you do what you got to do.
That's the underlying factor that nobody puts into play. And I think James Conner will have a good year.
I think the last one more point about Pittsburgh is that defense got way better by drafting that linebacker.
Yeah, Cleveland, I mean, everybody thinks Cleveland's a surefire thing to win the division.
Pittsburgh's always there.
Pittsburgh's got 6 Super Bowls, man. Like, don't count those guys out. I think
they got a quarterback who wins. Big Ben.
And Big Ben's a winner.
You hope in the middle of the week Big Ben's walking around with a boot because that means he's going to win that week.
Yes.
As long as he has a walking boot on, things are good.
I don't know if I'm going to play.
Yeah, things are good. Just put the boot
40
on.
40 fantasy
points. Yeah, exactly. That's why Big Ben's always my backup.
He's
because
I like Big Ben.
You play him at home against bad defenses and you're going to win that week.
I know John was trying to say when we did our QB rankings that Ben wasn't consistent. I don't think
consistently great at home.
But even last year, if you look, like, his away numbers are actually really good too. That used to be the narrative, but I think he's kind of put that aside last year. But perception is reality for a lot of people that don't win fantasy football championships. So moving on to number 10, your boy Joe Mixon, my son's boy Joe Mixon. I got him at 11, so you're kind of busting my chops there. But I'm only one away from you. John has him up at 9. Where do you have him, Jake?
I have Joe Mixon at 7.
Ooh.
I think he's the next guy after David Johnson.
He could very well be.
And my hot take is I think Joe Mixon finishes the year in the top 3.
There's a possibility for that to occur.
He only needs, first off, to play 16 games, which I feel like we've said about half the guys.
Yep.
Can they play 16?
Yep.
I feel like that's
he
just...
He played 14, so it wasn't like he wasn't ever
But that's the difference right there between being in the middle of the pack or being top 3.
You,
right. Can you play 16?
Yeah.
But all he needs to see is a 10% increase in touches, whether that's receptions or carries.
Yes.
And he finishes in the top 3 based on just his statistical history.
So, I mentioned my son's a Bengals fan, so I watch a lot of Bengals football, and it's hard to watch. Joe Mixon, much like David Johnson, just suffered from complete buffoonery from the coaching staff. Just a poorly run offense, way too quickly abandoned the run, and could have easily used Mixon more as a receiver. The guy is a big play waiting to happen, especially as a receiver. Hopefully the new staff will be a huge help. Like you just said, used correctly, so this may surprise you, used correctly, I think he could be the number 1 overall running back. I have PTSD from last year, given the lack of commitment to him as a runner and a receiver, but those idiots are gone. The complete overhaul should be a wheels-up scenario for Mixon to take flight, but the caveat for me is always it's the Bengals, or as I like to call them, the Bungles, because they always seem to bungle situations that seem like really easy situations and winning situations. And Mixon can win them games. He could have won them games. If you look at the games that he was used heavily, they won.
Right.
So we're going to not do that consistently and lose. I just don't understand that. And that's the Bengals as an organization. Hopefully this new guy, Zach, what's his name? Zach Taylor. Isn't that a guy from Saved by the Bell? Anyway, hopefully he can turn things around and get Mixon to his capabilities, which I don't disagree with you. I know you're high on him. I'm high on him too. He's a number 1 overall potential running back. I was telling you, get rid of Odell, get that guy off your team, and go get Joe Mixon. And that's what you did.
I still think that's a 50-50 ball right there, Odell or Joe Mixon.
It is, but...
Even though I love Joe Mixon, I think...
You want to talk 14 games.
Just...
How often does Odell give you 14 games?
I know. Seriously? If you get 14 out of Odell, though, he could be number 1 in just 14 games. He could be,
but I think you and I would both agree that running back is the more premium position to own. So I like Joe Mixon a lot. I think it's potentially wheels up. I hope that's the case. Not so much because you have him, so I don't want him to be too good. But I like Mixon. I like him pretty much where you like him. I just get concerned about Cleveland. Excuse me. Let's see.
Cleveland on the mind.
Freud was right. But yeah, Cincinnati. So number 11 is Dalvin Cook. Are you ready? Are you ready for this, Jake? I have Dalvin Cook at number 7, so I get to scroll all the way down on my show notes here because he's much further.
Yeah, if somebody needs to explain anything, it's Dalvin Cook at 7.
I'll be explaining that. John has Dalvin Cook at 6.
Oh boy, Royce.
So where do you have him?
I got Dalvin Cook at 11, where he belongs.
Oh, come on.
Where he belongs.
So again, I'm projecting 16 games. Dalvin Cook last year at 615 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, 40 receptions, 305 yards with 2 receiving touchdowns, but not 16 games. So, again, I want to spread that out to 16 games. I don't have a 16-game pace here. Shame on me, but the guy's a great runner and a great pass catcher. If he's healthy, he could contend for...
I found this on the web for Integrate Pass Catcher. Check it out.
Oh, John. DJ over here. No, my phone's in my pocket.
Well, we have another guest host.
Siri's helping out.
That's why we're the Working Class Podcast, bro. That's what it's all about.
I'll teach him to silence his phone after this podcast.
Yeah. See, John always reminds me, too. But people don't think he's on the ball as he is.
Pushing it back on me now.
Yeah, well, sure. Why not? I wasn't going there with that, but what the heck? Why not? So anyway, with Dalvin Cook, he can catch, he can run, and he can do both of those at a high level. It looked like Minnesota was committed to the run last year. Simple as this, can he stay healthy? If he can, I think he's an Ezekiel Elliott level talent, and I think his numbers could match Zeke's. I really do. There's nothing more to say for me in terms of, like you said, defense of it. I just think Dalvin Cook is that talented, and he's in an excellent situation where they want to run the ball. And they showed that they wanted to run the ball at the end of the season. So that's my take on Dalvin Cook. That's why I have him ranked 7. Opportunity and talent. And that's how I always rank guys.
So one big problem with Dalvin Cook I had was last year, in only the games he played, his rushing attempts plus targets was only 16 a game.
Yep.
And that's nowhere near what these other guys are getting.
But that ascended toward the end of the year. Sure. But I get your point.
Sure, but
your point. He needs more usage.
Right, he needs usage. I projected him out at 235 carries and 60 catches for a full year.
Yep.
Which is probably around where he'll end. I don't think he's Le'Veon Bell with 280 carries.
I think he could be. That's all I'm saying is I think he could.
I just don't think Minnesota's going to run that much. They have too many air weapons that they're going to throw too much.
But they've proven that they can support those 3 guys. I mean, let's face it. Kyle Rudolph, congratulations on your extension. You're a non-factor, and now Irv Smith is a non-factor. Who's their? I don't even know who their third wide receiver is. So
they don't need one.
They
only need those 2.
And you're right. It's a 3-man show.
And Kyle Rudolph.
It's Diggs and Thielen, and I think those guys can be supported on one offense. I think we've seen it before, where teams can support a top 10 running back and 2 top 10 receivers. And I think that's what you're going to see.
Yeah, I think the 2 things that just scare me about Dalvin Cook is I'll even bump him up to 250 carries. He still doesn't hit that 20 opportunities a game. And that makes me nervous for ranking him higher than 11.
And I get that.
If he's going to be in the top 7 or 8, he needs to get 20 touches. He has to.
And I think he can.
He can.
And I just think that's where
But I just don't know if they're not going to support the carries, I don't think, and that's the problem. He's going to get the receptions right around where everybody else is, but he's not going to get to 270 or 280 carries.
We'll just have to wait and see. A lot of it, hangs on Cousins, too, in his progression.
And then does he score more touchdowns? That's kind of where I kind of lie in how many touchdowns can he score? Because he's going to need to score more to be...
He did not have a big total last year. Four total.
4 total,
touchdowns.
Which I know that's a shortened season.
Right.
So,
but that's why I look at Zeke. I'm like, there's going to be positive regression there, and I just feel the same way with...
10 games, he scored 4 touchdowns, so that's pace for 7.
Yep.
So, and I have him projected at 7, and with the points, he would finish at 11 out of the running backs.
I just think he's
if he gets to 9 or 10,
more.
Great. Then he's probably bumping up ahead of Bell, ahead
I think he
of Connor, maybe even. But
I think he finishes ahead of those guys. I really do. Connor is going to be close, but Cook is a more talented guy in a similar situation. I think maybe not as run heavy, but I think he's still going to be a big factor.
Cook. I'm kind of not on the Cook train right now, but he's a good player. He's a good value. I think you get him in the middle to late second round. You pair
he's
him.
That guy you could pair with DeAndre.
I think even better if you can get one of the top 4 at 4, and then a guy like Cook falls all the way down. You know those 4 are going to carry you.
Yep.
If you get great upside out of Cook, you are finishing in the top 3.
We've got a guy in our league that has Cook and Melvin Gordon. That's a pretty good situation right
there. They're both injury prone, though, is the problem. That scares me. Neither one of them, in my opinion, is going to play 16 games.
Yeah, so it's hard to say that both will. Given the history.
I don't think either will, to be honest. I think they're both pretty brittle.
I hope they do for the fun aspect of it, but you're probably right.
Well, just going through rankings, if everybody plays 16 games, I have like 21 guys who are capable of 1,000 yards rushing. And last year, like 9 guys finished with 1,000. And one of them was Philip Lindsay, who you don't like. So
I don't dislike Lindsay. I think last year was kind of lightning in a bottle.
Right.
John and I will touch on him in the next episode, but if you look at it, the encouraging thing is, if you go back 4 or 5 years, you don't see this level of talent. You have literally the top 20, top 21. I would be happy with most of those guys. Like, there's so much depth at the position now, and that's awesome. And I said a couple of years ago, the workhorse back is returning, and when everybody said they were going away, look at this.
Well, they're returning in a different fashion, really. They're becoming wide receivers, basically.
Exactly.
They're catching 60 passes each if they're good.
Exactly.
And that's not how it used to be.
But it's still usage.
Who would have thought 3 years ago either Le'Veon Bell would be ranked at 10 for me?
Yeah, really.
At 10?
And Christian McCaffrey would have 107 receptions.
Todd Gurley and Le'Veon Bell are number 9 and 10.
Yeah.
Even last year, you could have, before the season, you would have been like, you're insane.
Yeah, that's the depth at the position. So I'm pretty excited about the position this year. So moving on from Dalvin, we're down to the end of the line here for the top 12. I don't get this. Nick Chubb is ranked number 12 by expert consensus ranking. I don't get that. I have him at 16. John has him at 14.
I have Chubb at 14.
So,
are we going to talk about Nick Chubb right now?
Yeah, we are, unfortunately. We're going to finish it off with Nick Chubb. But if you want to chime in with some other guys after
we got to talk about who our 12 is, I think, more than...
We can do that. It'll kind of bleed into next week's show, but...
You guys can talk about Nick Chubb as the ECR 12.
We got to talk about it, man. So...
It's not exciting based on Kareem Hunt coming back and taking your fantasy playoffs away.
This is why you listen to the armchair experts, not the quote-unquote real experts, because there ain't no chance in Hades that we would be ranking Nick Chubb at number 12.
We're not that far off. 14 and 16 isn't crazy.
But it's a big gap. Like, I would look at a guy like Kerryon Johnson and have him all day long over Nick Chubb. Like, it's not even close to me. Like, it just isn't. And here's why. So last year he had 996 yards, 8 touchdowns, 20 receptions, 149 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. He started getting going on week 7, averaged 16 PPR points per game from that point on, which is really good. He proved that he could be and should be an every down back, but Freddie Kitchen says Duke Johnson's going to have a role. Kareem Hunt is going to return from suspension. It's like I asked you earlier if you knew what the never-ending story was, and given that you're a millennial, I'm not surprised that you don't.
I've seen the picture of it. It's got that big white monster guy
He's not a
on
monster.
the cover
He's
of
a
it.
luck dragon, first of all.
Oh, luck dragon, sorry.
But
if he was evil, you'd call him a monster.
But the lead role was Atreyu, this little kid. He was the hero. And that's Nick Chubb. And Kareem Hunt is like the villain, which is the nothing. It's like this dark cloud that's taking over Eternia. I think it was that He-Man. I don't know. It's taking over the planet that they live on. That's the scenario. The nothing is coming, and it's going to eat up Nick Chubb. I think his first 6 weeks will be huge. 8 weeks, I guess. Kareem Hunt's, I think, is out 8 weeks.
And then I think they have a bye week 9.
Yeah, so 9 weeks. But after that, during the fantasy playoffs, during the playoff stretch, big question marks. Sorry, Nick. I think you're a great talent. I will never draft you.
Kareem Hunt's too talented is the problem.
Absolutely.
You get Kareem Hunt on the field, and how much does Chubb get cut into? Probably a lot.
I would take Kerryon Johnson over him. I would take Devonta Freeman over him.
Devonta Freeman, I could see the argument for. I have Devonta Freeman.
I would take Marlon Mack
scoring
over him.
A lot of points. Marlon Mack.
I might even take Josh Jacobs over him, just because know
you're too high on Jacobs.
He's going to have the lead role for the duration of the season. At least it's likely that that'll happen. It's not likely that Chubb's going to do that.
Not unless he gets off to a crazy pace and they're winning a lot of games.
But how's that help you win a championship? It helps you with Roto, I guess.
But I mean, if they're rolling, are they going to just sit Chubb as soon as Hunt comes back.
You don't, yeah, but like you said, you don't get a Kareem Hunt just to have him.
Well, they got him for nothing, so I think that
they did.
Let's say Kareem Hunt can't play till week 10, right? If they're 7-1, I don't think Chubb's losing the job for a little bit. I think he gets, as long as he can keep rolling, he's not losing carries right away.
I'm not going to say that Kareem Hunt's going to.
If they're 4-3 and need a spark plug, though.
Kareem Hunt's not going to come back and look at Nick Chubb and say, hold my beer, watch this, and go out there and do all the work. That's not going to happen.
Well, he might push him down. That's kind of Kareem Hunt's thing, is pushing people down.
Yeah.
He might push Chubb down and take the ball.
Let's not go there. That's only in like hotels. I don't know. I don't think
maybe he'll push him down. I don't think
we're supposed to be talking about this, Jake. But anyway,
if you don't know Kareem Hunt's a bad guy.
Yeah, he's not a
good guy. Yeah, so if you draft on morals, you can't have Kareem Hunt.
He's, as I like to call, a knucklehead. He falls into the knucklehead category.
Me, I don't care. It's fantasy football. As long as you score points, I'll take you.
Who do you have above Chubb? I mean, you're poo-pooing my Kerryon Johnson.
I have Leonard Fournette and Aaron Jones above Chubb.
I wouldn't have Jones necessarily above him, but I could see why you would do that.
Green Bay's too good of a situation. And
you know what my problem is with Green Bay?
They always mess it up. I know.
They get to the goal line, and Aaron Rodgers is like, hold my beer, and he throws it every single time.
Or he's just like, I'll just hold the ball over the line and take the touchdown.
He's an egomaniac. Everybody knows that.
But Aaron Jones loves to score
long
touchdowns.
Brady does the same thing. I want to do my little QB sneak here. It's like, hand it off to the running back, bro. Spread some love.
I still only gave Aaron Jones 7 touchdowns for the year and 1 receiving, and he still finishes at 13.
I like Jones. So this is a funny story, and I like to call guys out when they do things that they shouldn't do in our leagues. But Noah had Aaron Jones in the Dynasty League, and as part of his roster cuts that we have to do every year when we do the rookie draft, he cut Aaron Jones, and I picked him up for $50.
Not a good move.
50 fab bucks, fake fab dollars. So
if you don't like Aaron Jones and you believe Jamal Williams is going to take over, then
he could have traded him, though, dude. And I don't want to get too much into the stat lines on these guys because I don't want to spoil the next show, but I could definitely see Aaron Jones in a scenario where he's going to help you more winning a playoff championship than Nick Chubb will. It just scares me. The situation scares me.
I hear you there, but if you can get Kareem Hunt on a deal at the end of the draft later on.
Yeah, I'm eyeballing Hunt.
Chubb could potentially lead you the first 12 weeks, and then Kareem Hunt does the closer of the deal, and he comes in and gets the save.
I think they'll cannibalize each other, and that's never a good thing, ever.
I probably would. There's too many guys around Chubb that are too good to pass up.
Yes.
So that's kind of the problem with Chubb.
Like Kerryon Johnson.
I don't know about Kerryon Johnson. You can love Kerryon.
Even Damian Williams. I look at Chubb as a Damian Williams type of guy. You just don't know if he's going to make it the whole year as a stud.
They both play on good offenses is the problem.
Yeah. Well, I think we think Cleveland's a good offense.
How can it not be? How can that offense not be good?
There's an assumption there that hasn't been proven, but I think they will be fine. So, yeah, we're going to wrap it up with Chubb, much to Jake's chagrin. I want to appreciate you for filling in on this episode for John with his prior engagements that he had. Did a great job, Jake. Did you have fun?
Oh, yeah. Who doesn't love fantasy football and just talking football?
This is why we want to do this as a living, guys. If I can sit here and talk about fantasy football as a living, I mean, just
he kind of does that at work already.
A little bit.
He does spend a lot of time talking fantasy football.
A little bit. Not so much now because I'm the only one talking. Well, there's a very select few of us that are compiling breakdowns and ranks and doing 5 mocks a day and stuff like that. But you're one of those guys. We've poisoned you, Jake. You're one of us now. So we're happy to have you on the show. And hope you guys appreciate his take and my take on the top 12 running backs. I'm sure I sound like trash on this recording. I'm telling you guys, I'm really working hard to kind of balance out these microphones and get us both to sound excellent, but it's a struggle for my non-millennial, non-tech savvy behind to figure that stuff out. But anyway, if you guys want to follow us on Twitter, I am at Armchair Kingpin. You are at Jake Cookson, is that right?
Yeah.
How'd you snag that?
Millennials, we know how to work the system.
John is at John2977. And we're also on Facebook. Look us up on Facebook. I think that's about it for social media. Where I'm told Instagram is a thing. Is that a thing, Jake?
For people who are hip with social media, Instagram is a thing.
So not
maybe not you yet. Not yet, maybe.
And
Instagram's also, like pictures though, so I don't know what you're gonna. What are you gonna? I don't know I'm not Instagram savvy, so I don't know if you call it gramming. I don't know if you gram out.
I don't gram out. I don't gram in. I don't gram out. I don't even gram. But anyway, Apple Podcasts. What's the other one?
Spotify.
Thanks, bro. YouTube. Again, we are gonna tape the live draft. That's gonna be a blast. So our Keeper League draft is gonna be our first video. We have the fancy camera and everything. We just got to figure out how to use it and edit it. We're still trying to figure out how to edit this stuff, but hopefully you guys appreciate it, and we are infinitely grateful for you guys listening. I know a lot of our loyal listeners are people that we know. Don't think that we take that for granted. We really appreciate it. So for me, that's it for today, and we'll see you on Thursday. Jake, you got any parting thoughts?
No, thanks for having me. Go draft Joe Mixon.
Yeah, and carry on.
Hopefully I'm back soon to shut down John Royce's terrible hot takes.
We'd love to have you back. Hopefully John doesn't get a little intimidated by you.
I'm much taller than John Royce. So
we got a pretty big desk here. We got to squeeze in another chair and another mic, and hopefully we can do a 3-man show off and on here. So anyway, thanks again, Jake. Thank you guys for listening, and take care. Peace out.
Thank you for listening to the Armchair Fantasy Football Podcast. Thanks for supporting the show. Until next time.